All right, folks, I hope you had a blessed weekend. We're already off to a historical week with XRP moving higher, bouncing strong off of those lows in that last flush out that we had. And this is before Coinbase derivatives for XRP go live today. 3 more additional XRP ETFs going live at the end of this month, on top of the total 72 ETFs waiting on the desk of incoming chair Paul Atkins. We got the scoop from Eleanor Terrett that apparently Paul Atkins should be sworn in and be effective in his role this week. This is on top of the breaking news that we had over this past night of Pope Francis passing, historical shifts about to be underway at the Vatican within the Catholic Church, and then also World Economic Founder, Chairman, and Founder Klaus Schwab stepping down today as well. So we're going to get right on into this update. It's going to be a big week. Make sure you stay tuned with us by subscribing, hitting that notification bell, and all of our community resources are available at zachrector.com. Let's go, folks. So here it is, Klaus Schwab stepping down from the World Economic Forum. Big shifts, right? And this is the tip of the spear in the economic club, in the economic world, right? You have the Vatican and that power structure there going to go through a huge shift as Pope Francis passes 88 years of age. At the same time, we see Klaus Schwab stepping down in his 88th year as well. And then last night, maybe it's a coincidence, maybe I'm crazy, maybe you're crazy, Bitcoin goes up to $88,000 as well. I don't know what that means. I'll let the decoders do the decoding. What we can acknowledge is as a fact is a historical shift is now going to be underway at the Vatican within the World Economic Forum. And then we're going to talk about this monetary order that's shifting as well, with gold breaking up to a new all-time high last night of $3,400 per ounce. Guys, check it out. So President Trump comes in this morning, calls for preemptive rate cuts, and claims there is virtually no inflation. Now he's calling Jerome Powell Mr. Too Late. That's the new nickname for Chair Powell. Full statement from President Trump reads off, preemptive cuts in interest rates are being called for by many. With energy costs way down, food prices, including Biden's egg disaster, substantially lower, and most other things trending down, there is virtually no inflation. Now, I have to clarify something on behalf of President Trump, because I know that people don't like hearing this when we still are dealing with the compounded inflation over the past 4 or 5 years. So I understand how frustrating it is for most Americans to hear our president talk about prices coming down when we're not quite seeing it yet. And there's no relief when you've had compounded inflation over the past 4 or 5 years. Yes, the rate of inflation's coming back down. That's good. We're making progress, but there's still a lot of pain being felt. So I like to clarify that on behalf of our president. With these costs trending down so nicely downward, just what I predicted they would do, there can almost be no inflation, but there can be a slowing of the economy unless Mr. Too Late, a major loser, lowers interest rates now. Europe has already lowered 7 times. Powell has always been too late, except when it came to the election period when he lowered in order to help sleepy Joe Biden, later Kamala, get elected. How did that program work out? Now, we noted this, right? We were already at an all-time high stock market last year. We were chugging along. They were telling us that the economy was strong, but they were cutting rates. With inflation still running high, the market's at an all-time high, why would we be cutting rates and easing conditions other than to make sure that the party could continue through that election? Still didn't work, and now we see that Powell is still playing politics. And you have folks like Elizabeth Warren, getting very upset, folks saying that it's unconstitutional for President Trump to say that he's going to fire Jerome Powell. And what they're missing is the fact that the entire structure of the Federal Reserve is unconstitutional in and of itself. So President Trump, I know that folks are, the market's already back down. The stock market is anyways, after these statements this morning. I don't think that they're liking to see this. But what they don't understand is that President Trump has every single right to be speaking in this way about Jerome Powell. Whether or not you think it's presidential, whether you think it's nice, President Trump is outlining the fact that it's absurd that we're dealing with this private, foreign entity essentially controlling our monetary policy and having a monopoly on our monetary policy, completely against our Constitution. And whether or not we're going to get rid of the Fed, I think that there is a shift underway. There's already big talks of them looking at new Fed chairman. And when you look at the previous executive order that Trump did under his last administration, he really reined back in that power and brought it back to the Treasury. So we'll continue to watch this and update you further. We have another statement here from President Trump last night on the non-tariff cheating countries and what we're up against. And see, this is where the Fed is supposed to be helping us out against this. Right now, they're actively working against President Trump, but more so the American people, Main Street economy, which is what Trump and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent are trying to save. The non-tariff cheating. See, it's not just tariffs that we're up against, it's the currency manipulation. And I love the fact that he lists that one off first. How do we get to a level playing field? We can't have currency manipulation. We can't have VATs, value-added taxes, which are acting as tariffs, and export subsidies, dumping below cost, export subsidies and other government subsidies, protective agricultural standards, no genetically engineered corn in the EU, protective technical standards, Japan's bowling ball test, counterfeiting, piracy, and IP theft over $1 trillion per year, and transshipping to evade tariffs, where basically China will ship to another country so that they can bring it in. All of this, but the one that I like to focus on is that currency manipulation. Can't have it, not on a level playing field. Now, we've been manipulating our currency, and other countries have been manipulating their currency. It needs to stop across the board. And we need to return or move back to an asset-backed and asset value system where we recognize where real value comes from, not from the government deeming that piece of paper as valuable, but is that piece of paper being backed actually by physical gold, physical value, a real economy, not a fake economy, not fake fiat paper. Now, continuing on, this is what Jim Rickards has to say in regards to President Trump unlocking a $150 trillion wealth fund, part of this transfer of wealth that we've been talking about. Take a listen in on this very interesting clip from Jim Rickards.
In 1873, Congress quietly established something I call a secret trust for the American people. And for more than a century, this fund has quietly grown, untouched, into a $150 trillion fortune. That's enough to pay off our entire national debt 4 times over. If you divided it by the number of households in the U.S., it would be enough to turn every American family into a millionaire. Now, this trust should have enriched generations of Americans. That was its intended purpose. Instead, for more than a century, it's remained sealed off from the public. But that's all about to change. Thanks to President Trump. You see, for the first time in more than 40 years, the president has the authority to release this secret trust. It's all thanks to a 2024 Supreme Court ruling. That ruling had paved the way for President Trump to unleash this $150 trillion wealth reserve, and he's clearly stated his intentions to do so. Look, if you understand what's coming next, and you take the proper steps today, you could watch your net worth soar in the coming years.
And that's where we've positioned ourselves perfectly, because we understand the problem, we understand the solution, we don't need it spoon-fed to us by the mainstream media. We've done our own research, and we've taken effective action. That's the important part. Ben Rickard, the hard truth is the evidence is all around us that we have a debt crisis, a credit crisis, a liquidity crisis, and a currency crisis. In a world moving away from the US dollar and the US Treasury, there will be no pullback in gold, not for a while. And what's interesting is last night, President Trump put out a True Social post on he who has the gold makes the rules. And this is just hours before Pope Francis passed away. And the story that, some folks have looked into is how much gold the Vatican held. What's interesting, one of the reasons why I listened to my mentor, Dan Pena, he's actually one of the few businessmen to do business with the Vatican Bank. So, and he's well inserted himself within the Vatican. And, someone like him, he'll tell you about the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? But the point that I'm getting at is President Trump puts out this tweet, very interesting, just a few hours before Pope Francis passes away. And we see gold soaring to continuing on to new all-time highs. Just record after record after record high for gold just continues to soar. Check this out, guys. We're looking at gold right now, $3,400 per ounce, We went as high as 3,440 this morning. This thing has just soared, and it's going to continue to. And this is part of the revaluation. This is why Jim Rickard says if you're positioned correctly, you're going to see your net worth, you're going to create generational wealth, you're going to get in front of this transfer of wealth. Now we move into crypto, right? Because for us, it's not just the precious metals, it's also the digital assets that are going to be part of this revolution, reset, restructure as well. We're looking at Tether, turn back on that money printer, another billion minted at the Tether treasury, getting the ball rolling. We have Eleanor Terrett with the scoop, cryptoinamerica.com. Atkins poised to take reins at the SEC this week. That's the scoop. When he arrives, not only is he going to get that XRP SEC versus Ripple lawsuit handed off to him on a silver platter to settle up, he's also going to have 72 crypto-related ETFs awaiting approval. Everything from XRP Litecoin Solana to Penguins, Doge, and 2X Melania coin, and everything in between. Going to be a wild year. Great roundup from James Seyfert. And what ETFs are going to lead the way? It's going to be the XRP ETFs. I think that they're actually going to give the Bitcoin ETFs a run for their money. Now, we got products going live today. That would be Coinbase derivatives. XRP futures trading is set to begin today. Now, I already checked my Coinbase app. I didn't see it. I made sure that I had updated my app, and I did. So I think maybe that's just going live later today. But I will be circling back to see. And I might just go long XRP for the culture. I'm going to tell you right now. Not financial advice, but just because I can finally get some access to some XRP futures once again, I might have to go long just for the culture. Now, I got to remind Gary Cardone here because he likes to talk about gold, comparing it to Bitcoin and how great Bitcoin is. But we also got to talk about XRP, Gary. And, he notes this is the price performance from April 2024 through April 2025 over the last year. Gold increased by 40%, reaching 3,300 per ounce by April 2025. He needs to update that now, right? Because gold is now up over 3,400. 3,440 was the price we hit this morning on the futures. So he's going to need to update that one, okay? Silver rose by 13%, reaching 33 per ounce by April 2025. Yeah, silver was already up at about $30 last year, so a little bump from last year. Now, Bitcoin is surged by 102%, reaching 85,000 by April 20th, 2025, despite a 22% drop from its all-time high of 109,000. And I got to remind Gary, now you got to compare against XRP. And when you make that comparison, you look at how cute that little return is from Bitcoin. 100% not bad. 100% not bad. Does 400% sound just a little bit better? Maybe just a little bit better. Now, the reason why I titled this episode XRP Moving Higher is because when you zoom out here recently, XRP has destroyed Bitcoin in returns. Destroyed. We've also, performed better than gold and silver as expected, but gold doing its job in our portfolio on defensive side of it. And then on offense, we want to hit it big. Is hitting it big with Bitcoin 100% nice? That's a good one. That's a nice move. Doesn't compare to XRP though. And it does not going to compare when XRP continues to lead this bull run, when we have this case settle up, the ETFs going live, massive liquidity coming into XRP, and you're going to see this price soar even further. But when we look at XRP right now, the reason why I said XRP moving higher, entitled this episode this, is because we have XRP up 30% already. In fact, it was even a little bit more, right? But we've pulled back here down to 209 this morning right now. We were up to 214 this morning. But from this low that we did all the way down to $1.60, you're already up 30%. So if you bought anywhere during this dip, you're up 10, 20, 30% on your money that you invested here on these pullbacks, right? And this is this opportunity now with XRP setting that new floor price right at about $2. It's almost like $2 is going to act like that 50-cent floor that we had. But this time around, when you look at all the bullish catalysts along with the macro events and timeline that we've all put together here, this year, I think that we're going to see XRP break out of this range. And this $2 floor, I don't think is going to act as a floor like 50 cents did for, 6 years. That is not going to happen with a $2 XRP floor price, in my opinion, because we have just too much liquidity on the sidelines waiting to come into XRP. Global M2 money supply already at an all-time high. Folks want exposure to cryptos. When they look at the crypto space and they say, wow, Bitcoin, that's cute. You know, wow, I could go into chase bigger gains in these meme coins, but that's risky. Or I could still get significant gains in XRP and not have to take on a substantial amount of risk because there's just so much fundamentals behind this coin. This is why the XRP ETFs are going to outperform the rest of these cryptos, you know, going long on Melania coin, going long on the Pudgy Penguin coin. XRP is going to lead the charge from an institutional investor standpoint, and we've shown you with the flows, it doesn't take much. We're going to be looking at a lot higher price for XRP, but that process of moving higher has already started. So I wouldn't wait around. You know, we can continue to accumulate and stack up these dips, and like I'm showing you on this chart, you pick up these dips, it doesn't take long for you to be up 10, 20, 30, 40% on your investment within a couple days. And we're nowhere near being done with this bull run. We're in fact just about to start the next wave of it. I think that we have seen the worst, and we're going to be turning around here shortly. So please prepare yourself. If you appreciate what we're doing, make sure you are liking our videos, helping us out by sharing them out far and wide. Let's get some other folks exposed to this asset class, crypto in general. But then as we've been honing in on utility cryptos based in America, I couldn't get more bullish. I couldn't get more bullish on our community and how we've positioned ourselves for this transfer of wealth. Defensive measures performing better than the stock market, right? And then on offense, we have the top performing cryptos in our portfolios, and the upside fundamentals on these really is looking pretty great for the rest of this year. So please lock in. Please help us out by sharing it out far and wide. Everything's at my website. I appreciate your support, and God bless you all. Thank you so much. I am your host, Zach Rector. I really appreciate all of the love and support. If you want to support the channel, just remember that you can start by smashing that thumbs up for me, sharing this content far and wide, and everything else is at my website.